Hi knitting friends, today I'm back in my knitting studio to share another free pattern with you. I'm going to teach you how to make a bookmark, and this is a beginner friendly straight needle project. So if you are brand new to knitting and want to have a go, jump in and give this pattern a try because it's super easy. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Joolsy. I love sharing my knitting adventures, including free patterns and tips, so thanks for joining me. If you want to start your knitting adventures, think about subscribing and joining me for the ride. So we're going to jump in with our knitting bookmark. You can see that I've knit this on a colourful rainbow wool. It's an 8-ply. And today I'm going to use the New Zealand Wool Windsor 8-ply DK, and it is in the shade 96. I don't know what that means, but it's a rainbow colour. It's 100% pure wool. So we're going to use that. I'm also using 3.75mm straight needles. If you prefer to use a slightly bigger needle, you could go up to a 4mm needle if that's more your thing. This is my finished one that I've done as a sample, and you can see that I've added some tassels on the end. I've also added some little polymer clay charms. You can do whatever you like. You could embroider yours. You could do a whole range of things, but I'll show you how to do the tassels at the end if that's something you want to add to your bookmark. So let's get started. I'm going to start by casting on. You'll need a rather long tail to cast on because we're casting on 40 stitches. So start with your slip knot, like so. And if this is your very first time casting on knitting, you might want to go and check out my cast on knit video and have a bit of a practice before you start. But if not, just jump in. So we're casting on 40 stitches straight onto the needle. So we've got our slip knot and away we go. $38, $39, $40. So we've got the length of our bookmark, as you can see from the one I made before. Now we're going to start our first row of knitting. Remember that the most important thing when you start your first row of knitting is to not mistake the long tail for your working yarn. So I like to cut mine nice and short, get rid of that, so we don't mistake it for the working yarn. So that's your long tail for casting on, and this is your working yarn. So working with the working yarn, you're going to go in from left to right, front to back, work your yarn around, and then slide him off the needle. Left to right, front to back, wrap it around, then slide that stitch off the needle. And we're just going to keep knitting like that all the way to the end of the row. If you've watched some of my other videos, you'll know that I always say the first row is kind of the trickiest one because your stitches are kind of just learning their tension, and so it might be a little bit fiddly, but that's okay. Once you get through the first row, it becomes much easier. So knit those stitches all the way along the row. Now this pattern is in garter stitch, which means that we knit every row, which makes it easy because you've only got to learn how to do one stitch. Okay, so once we get to the end of that row, you're just going to turn your work around and you're going to work back the other way, knitting every stitch just like we did for the previous row. And that's your pattern. So you're just going to keep going until you've done 18 rows of knitting. And the way we're going to keep track of that is you're going to have 9 of these little ridges on each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'll leave you to it and then I'll catch you up at the end. Okay, so we're back. We've done our 18 rows of garter stitch, knitting all the rows. And now all that's left to do is to cast off. So the way we do that is you're just going to knit 2 stitches and then pass the first stitch over the second. Then you're going to knit another stitch, pass the first stitch over the second, and you're just going to keep going along like that till the end of the row, casting off all 40 stitches on your needle. When you get to your last stitch, you're just going to cut that end off. I just pull that through. Then you're going to grab your darning needle and just weave in those 2 ends. So the way I do it is I just kind of follow the stitch along, thread that through and then cut it as close as you can. Same on the other side. Just weave it into those stitches a few times. And then cut it as close as you can. And there you have your bookmark. Now you can leave it like that. It's really pretty as it is. Or if you'd like to put some tassels on the end, I'll show you how I do it. So I cut some lengths of the same coloured yarn, or you could use a contrasting colour if you prefer. And you're going to need 2 lengths of yarn for each tassel that you make. So I'm going to make 6 tassels on each end. I will need a total of 12 lengths per end and 24 lengths altogether. Once you've cut all your lengths, you're going to grab 2 strands of yarn and thread your needle, and then you're just going to take the thread through and then back down to create a loop. So you should have 4 lengths of yarn all pointing one direction and 1 loop pointing the other, and then you're just going to take those lengths and pull them through like that to make a tassel. Once you've done that one, grab another 2 lengths, thread your needle, go down to the next spot that you want to tassel and go up one end like so and in the other end, creating a loop with 4 lengths on the other end. Try and get them quite even. 4 tails down this end and 1 loop, and then we just pass that through like so. And then you're going to keep going along as before. And there you go, you've got your tassels. Now once you've done your 6 tassels and you're happy with them on that end, then you can just trim them evenly to the length that you want. And then once you've done that side, you just repeat it on the other end. And as you can see with my completed one from before, I've also added some little charms on. And that's your finished bookmark. If you enjoyed this pattern and you want to try some of my other free knitting patterns, have a look on my channel for my free knitting pattern playlist. Thanks everybody, happy knitting, and I'll catch you in the next one.